basically. And I think that what people don't understand is that it isn't the fact that there might be life out there that's the big issue. 70-some% of the public believe there is. It's because if you say they're here and they're moving around in our skies in these extraordinary things we call UFOs, and then what you're going to find is that scientists would then say, if officialdom acknowledge this, well, how are they moving around? How are they going from one star system to another? And there you've just cracked open this bottle and the genie's out. And with that would come a complete transformation of life on Earth, which I think is what needs to happen. But if you own $1 trillion oil field, you're probably not thrilled about this prospect. So it's a big geopolitical and macroeconomic issue.
Absolutely. I think I remember Tesla saying something, building a free energy machine. And J.P. Morgan said, "Where do I put the meter?"
J.P. Morgan said this will not come out unless we can put a meter on it. Also, Old Man Westinghouse got involved with this, of what's now Westinghouse Corporation. And, of course, as you know, General Electric was started by Edison, but then got taken over by other people. And all of these interests, along with the Rockefeller family way back in the early part of the century, said, look, we do not want this out. And what people need to understand is that people like Tesla and Stubblefield and T. Townsend Brown, and if you go to the OrionProject.org, you'll see all these historical references, had developed some aspects of this over the last 100 years. The problem has been that whether it was 75 years ago or now, there are so many vested, powerful economic interests that do not want this out, because it would completely not just change how we get power, but metaphorically, it would change the power dynamics on the planet. Because right now there are 200 or 300 corporations and families that literally have half of the net worth of the world under their control.
Mm-hmm. And don't want to lose that.
That is a true statistic, and it blows people's minds. And it's the greatest asymmetry in wealth in the history of the world right now. And so the problem has become, how do you have that change where these people can loosen their grip on this? Because if they don't loosen their grip on it, we're strangling the life out of the planet. We're enmeshed in this situation in the Middle East, this endless war scenario. We're having all these problems environmentally, and the world is increasingly impoverished by this. I mean, you have 7 billion people. There's simply no way that all of them can have air conditioning and drive around in cars, because we're really going to run up against the limits of what we can do with the zero-sum game of fossil fuels and oil and gas and coal. So these new technologies are the solution. But as one policy wonk told me last year in Washington, yes, but these are too good. I said, what do you mean they're too good? And he said, they're too good because we just want to tinker around the edges with a little bit of wind power and solar power, but we really don't want something this revolutionary. I said, look, we're out of time to tinker around the edges. Tinkering around the edges would have been fine 50 years ago. Now we need to make some serious changes.
Absolutely.
I completely agree with you. We have a Walmart here that's supposed to be, a green Walmart, and it's got the wind power stuff, and I'm like,
right.
What is this? This is a joke. It is a joke.
I was telling someone recently, to put just solar on my house so it would really run completely just with solar, and I'm not way up north, I'm here in Central Virginia, it would cost over $100,000. Now, most Americans are not going to plop $100,000 into a solar farm for their house. And so in terms of practical solutions, these things are, I guess it's better than nothing. But when you think about the fact that we can prove that there have, and I've asked the president, there's some people very close to President Obama that I work with, where I've provided briefing materials to, and I said, look, you've got to really issue, and actually this letter to the president is up at disclosureproject.org, where we say that we need an emancipation proclamation, a new one, that basically says we're going to have to liberate our people and the world from the shackles of this economic slavery that is running the earth into the ground. And it isn't a matter of whether it can be done. We know it can. It's a matter of whether there's the moral courage and the leadership to get this task accomplished. And actually, this is why myself and Dr. Bravo and Dr. Loader have left our day jobs as physicians and scientists at universities and stuff to work on this, because we think that we're truly in a global emergency, and some people have got to come together and put some good minds together with the right vision and the right consciousness to make this change a reality.
Absolutely, absolutely. I'm sure you're familiar with the case of Gary McKinnon, who broke into the Pentagon computer back in 95, 96 with a 56K baud modem. But
well, no, actually, that was in 01. He broke in after he heard about the Disclosure Project. And actually,
yes.
I wasn't directly responsible for that, but I was indirectly. He heard about what we had, and you have to understand, if you go to disclosureproject.org, you're going to see testimony, but we have books and videos that have 110 top secret guys, ranking from generals to CIA people to DIA, Defense Intelligence Agency, to NASA. And when he saw that, he thought, "Oh my God, this is real!" And so he started trying to get information. and in the process, he hacked into these computers and did see some things apparently. But in fact, I have told his attorneys what he needs to argue is that the projects that he was looking into were illegal projects that are not protected by the rule of law anyway, and the case should be thrown out because. Here's a simple fact. A lot of people have asked me, how have I published these top secret documents? And this, if you go to our website, disclosureproject.org, we just put up there a National Reconnaissance Office secret document from the early 90s that lists the project code names and code numbers.
Oh,
for
wow.
these secret projects, and it's up there for anyone to look at. And people say, how have you done that? I said, because back in 1998, after I briefed Clinton's CIA director, after I briefed the Senate Intelligence Committee people, etc., and I found out that most of these people didn't know about this issue and were being lied to when they asked about it, including the President of the United States and his CIA director, R. James Woolsey. That when I found that out, I said, look, well, these programs, therefore, are unconstitutional and rogue, and they can't cite the National Security Act to protect them. So that's when I started turning to these men and women who are heroes, really, to come forward with documents, to come forward with their testimony and information, because even if they had signed a national security oath or agreement, those were nullified by the fact that this group that is running the secret programs dealing with UFOs and new energy lied to the president, lied to the Congress, and have literally stolen. I mean, Rumsfeld himself admitted around 9/11 that there were $2 or $3 trillion missing out of the Department of Defense budget over the last few decades. Trillion. Mm-hmm. And he said that himself. This is Rumsfeld that said this. It's on the record. So, this kind of behavior is illegal, and therefore what I say to people is anyone who has information on this subject or documents should contact me through the disclosureproject.org, and we will take it and put it out to the public.
That's amazing, really. Okay, first of all, what did that guy find?
Which guy?
The guy that hacked into
Gary McKinnon.
Yeah, what did he find?
Well,
exactly?
I understand that he did see some evidence that there were classified, the Pentagon and NASA objects in space, that there was a sort of a secret space force, which we know about. What a lot of people don't realize is that many of these so-called UFO sightings are actually man-made anti-gravity systems. There are extraterrestrial vehicles, ETVs is what they're called. By the way, no one in the business calls them UFOs. A UFO, that term was invented by people trying to cover this whole thing up. I call them unidentified flying objects. There are two categories of them. One are these things that are man-made.
Dr. Greer, we're coming up to a network break.
The other are the real ones, the ET ones.
We're coming up to a network break. We'll be right back. TruthFrequencyRadio.com is our website, and we'll see you on the other side, ladies and gentlemen, with Dr. Stephen Greer.
Allà baix dins els canals, en el peu de Santanya, pareix que sent picarols, suau si es mou sa manada.
And we are back on American Freedom Radio. Our amazing guest, Dr. Stephen Greer of the Disclosure Project. And right before the break, we were talking about Gary McKinnon and what he found when he broke into the Pentagon computers. And I think you said, Dr. Greer, there were two types of UFOs that he found, man-made and alien. And I recently heard another term from another guest that we had on, identified alien craft, whatever that means. But we actually,
and this has been the whole problem for years, is that you get people on this subject and they'll say, well, we don't know what they are, but this simply isn't true. I mean, we have literally hundreds. At this point, I now have over 500 military intelligence and corporate whistleblowers who have been in these projects, who have personal, direct, not secondhand information and documents, and that's what we put together through the materials through the disclosureproject.org and cseti.org, cseti.org. And what people don't understand is that we have been studying the physics dealing with these craft since the 40s, if not before. I know since the 40s and possibly the 30s. There was a general in World War II named General Jimmy Doolittle, and Doolittle was asked by President Roosevelt to go over to the European theater and look into these so-called Foo Fighters, or Foo Fighters. It sounds like a rock group, but in reality, there were these things zipping around during World War II around our aircraft. The Nazis thought it was a secret American weapon. We thought it was a secret Nazi weapon. And General Doolittle was sent over there by President Roosevelt, came back to the White House and said they are, quote, interplanetary vehicles. I'm quoting. And this is from General Doolittle's nephew, who knew this directly from the general. So our network is so extensive, and what's tragic is that you look at now, we're now 70 years into this, and we're still running around with jet airplanes. And people think, oh, gee, a rocket scientist. Well, a rocket was Werner von Braun in the early 40s for Adolf Hitler. The sciences behind these high-voltage electromagnetic systems that tap into the energy, the so-called interdimensional field of energy, or hyperdimensional physics that we're going to be talking about at this conference in Arizona, October 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. It's something that, once people get their minds around it, it's very elegant. And what we're trying to do is get enough people to come together to actually open a laboratory to build these things up independent of Lockheed Skunk Works or the U.S. government. I think that we, the people, have to say, look, it's time for us to do this. And so that's why we formed this third project, the OrionProject.org, is to gather together the scientists and identify the funding to build a laboratory here near the University of Virginia and work on these things independently, because it's, the pressures and the corruption in Washington are so great on this issue that even when Clinton Department of Energy head Richardson approved funding for Ken Shoulders' system that was a sort of a hyperdimensional system that would have neutralized nuclear waste. And they granted, I think it was a couple $1 million to further study this at the University of Illinois. The people in this secret organization circled their wagons and forced Secretary Richardson to withdraw the grant after it was published. This is a proven fact. So it's very difficult to get these things done in Washington because of the clout of these, quote, special interests. And I think we, the people, have to say, look, it's time for us to do this. It absolutely can be done. The physics have been around a very long time. And we have identified a couple of dozen top-drawer scientists who understand the physics of this. And what we want to do is combine them together and build these systems up. And that has to be combined with the consciousness of how to use it. And we talked about this at the beginning, is that you can't just come out with a better mousetrap. You have to come out with a vision of how the world can be transformed through this knowledge and be used peacefully.
Absolutely.
And that's really the conundrum, because if we don't use it peacefully, it's going to be another problem.
You're absolutely right. I've often wondered, any beings that are out there who have this kind of technology have to have a higher state of consciousness and a higher understanding in order to use this technology. Otherwise, they would blow themselves up.
Well, of course, or would have blown up each other's worlds years ago, like we did with mutual assured destruction. Our plans, if we'd had a thermonuclear war with the Soviets, it would have ended all life on Earth.
Exactly.
And what people have to understand is that, there's all kinds of stuff in the UFO conspiracy stuff about the good aliens and the bad aliens. And I said, look, any civilization capable of interstellar travel that could get here have technologies, requisite technologies, if they want to use them, to turn the Earth into a pink vapor floating through space, or to turn each other's worlds. The consciousness that must be developed when you go interstellar and can go faster than the speed of light, it requires that there be a corollary in the development of consciousness, because without that, you're absolutely going to have these technologies in the hands of primitives who are going to blow themselves up with it. So, and that's really where we find humanity right now, is that we have a lot of people who are all obsessed with power and centralized power, who have all these wondrous new sciences and technologies, and they have used them to target ET spacecraft and have hit them. This I know for a fact. I have multiple independent corroborating witnesses in the Disclosure Project who have been present when that's happened, and this is a tragedy. But if the ETs were hostile, we would have just simply been toast back about 1947 or 45 when we started.
I completely agree.
Because
Yeah, there's no question about this, but there's all kinds of fear-mongering